Sports Shorts Daily presented by Lavis Casino. It's the Friday edition. It's opening weekend at the box. We're going to talk about LSU playing at the Ice Box this weekend in Baton Rouge. We'll break down the LSU Tigers on offense, defense, and on the mound. Probably nothing you necessarily heard before, but I got some interesting takes. Paul Mainieri going to be juggling his lineup, of course, not only this weekend. And don't get all caught up in whatever you see this weekend as far as who starts, because we've seen in the past that means nothing. Some of these players, you may not even be on the roster come May. We've seen that happen before. So just enjoy seeing all these different faces for LSU baseball this weekend. We'll talk about that, plus LSU basketball news to get to. Big game tomorrow. They had a game canceled, and some news about Shaquille O'Neal's son, Sharif. He may not be back for LSU. We'll talk about that and why. Don't go anywhere. Sports Shorts presented by Lavis rolls on right after this. Good morning, TK.
Good morning, Ronnie. How you doing?
I'm doing well, my friend. I'm doing well. Hey, LSU baseball opening weekend. It's not a surprise that it's going to be cold. They were supposed to play tonight. They're going to play tomorrow at 1 o'clock. Good news is the weather should be decent for opening day. Won't be a night game at the box, but they're going to play Air Force. We've already started off the year with juggling, right? Notre Dame can't make it in because of COVID issues. So far, keep your fingers crossed. Looks like Air Force is going to be okay. Louisiana Tech's like, yep, we'll drive down from Ruston. It's going to be this juggle throughout the year.
It really is for LSU and for everybody else. So people just going to have to get used to it, make the adjustments. I like what you said. It'll be the Ice Box, not Alec Box this weekend. I won't be able to get out there, but I'll be keeping tabs on everything. And, I know, Delgado got underway yesterday with a win. So, college baseball's here. That's a good thing.
Yeah, BRCC's like 2 or 3 weeks into their season already. The lineup, everybody gets caught up so much as to who starts, but it's not like football where you only have 12 games, a finite amount of games. You play one game, that's 1/12 of the season. Well, you play one today is 1/56th of the regular season, not to mention everything else. So whatever happens today or this weekend, rather, it doesn't really matter. But we'll get into who's starting and all that. We do know this: LSU does not have a lot of experience coming back on the offensive side of the ball.
They really don't, and that's going to be something they'll keep an eye on early. And Coach Paul Mainieri has demonstrated in his career at LSU that first month of the season prior to conference play, he'll change the lineup. He'll put a guy in. He'll take a guy out. If somebody gets hot, he'll leave him in there. I mean, that's just part of it. As you said, 56 games in the regular season if they can get them all in, and that's the way it's going to be. People tend to overreact, and, they're going to play Saturday and Sunday and Monday. People are going to say, oh, well, what about this? What about that? You got to calm down. You got to be patient. It's just like, when you play the game, it's a 9-inning game. I mean, if the second inning goes terrible for you, hey, relax. You got a lot of opportunity to correct things. And that's the analogy for the entire season. You have time to make some adjustments and corrections, and you got to defer to Paul Mainieri and Alan Dunn and Nolan Kane and the staff. They'll figure it out. I mean, and, a lot of expectations for this team, albeit picked fourth in the West, and a lot of other strong teams in the SEC. Florida and Ole Miss are as good as they can get in the country.
One of the interesting stories, Tommy, about this year for me is Drew Bianco. I mean, there's a lot of interesting stories, but Drew Bianco is a guy who it hasn't worked yet for him at LSU. He's got the Bianco name. Everybody remembers his dad, Mike, who was a catcher in 88 and 89. He caught Ben McDonald for those 2 years. That was Ben's sophomore and junior years. Went on to coach with Jim Wells as a GA at Northwestern State. Then he came to LSU as an assistant, and he was an assistant there 93 to 97, I believe. 93 to 96, I believe. He was an assistant, and then he became the head coach at McNeese. And then after 3 or 4 years at McNeese, 3 years I think at McNeese, he became a head coach at Ole Miss. Been there 20 plus years. That's his history. He loves LSU. His wife went to LSU. He went to LSU. His wife's from Louisiana, but he's made a home and a reputation for himself at Ole Miss. And now his son Drew comes to LSU, and there was tremendous expectation. It hasn't worked out yet, but now we're finding out that Drew Bianco is in the mix to be the starting shortstop at LSU, which if you've ever seen Drew Bianco, he looks like a catcher. He looks like a third baseman. He looks like a left fielder. Does not look like a shortstop. But Paul Maneri, and he reiterated it yesterday in a Zoom call, going to give him opportunities. He is in the mix with Arnold. Really, him and Arnold are going to battle it out at shortstop. This is the biggest surprise for me of the year. I'm curious to see how that experiment goes.
Yeah, I am too. You know, when he first came to LSU, Coach Mike Bianco said, "Hey, I want my son to get a different experience," and you know, his passion for LSU from Mike, and you know, maybe Mike knew the kid might be a little bit of a project. You know, I first saw him play in one of your summer tournaments many summers ago out at U High, and I remember thinking, well, okay, well, there could be some upside here. We'll see. He didn't really knock my socks off that day. But now at shortstop, I mean, it doesn't look like a shortstop, but I have not been at practice. But obviously Coach Maneri has seen something there. And the other thing, too, is bat hasn't really been around in his days at LSU. And I know they only played 17 games last year, small snapshot. But we'll just have to wait and see. That'll be one of the works in progress, I think, in these first 4 weeks prior to SEC play.
Arnold and Bianco, who'll be battling at shortstop. Arnold is really probably the player that Paul Maneri hopes, and I don't mean hope because he likes him more than he likes Bianco, but Arnold was drafted out of high school. He's supposed to be the dude. He's got the higher upside. He's more the true infielder. But he missed, he had broken rib last year, missed a lot of last year. Bianco probably, if he ends up playing at that position and being the starting shortstop for any meaningful amount of time this year, Tommy, I think that means he's hitting baseball, right? You're going to give up a little bit with Bianco at short versus anybody else really on the team. So it comes down to, are you getting the offense that you just got to find a spot for him? And I think that's going to be the key to LSU baseball this year. They probably have less than 150 hits, SEC hits combined as a team coming back. That's so much the inexperience that they have. So because of that, you need enough offense to then think about defense. So what I mean by that, Tommy, is if you got to line up with 9 guys, you got to have at least 6, right? 6 or 7 that are hitting the baseball. You don't mind giving up 2 positions, usually a catcher or a middle spot, a center fielder or a middle infield. You don't mind giving up maybe 2 positions in your lineup that don't hit very well, but you can't give up 3, 4. And I think that's what Paul Maneri is going to wait and see.
Yeah, and you definitely can't give up 3 or 4 when you get to SEC play because everybody's got arms. Everybody pounds the strike zone in the SEC, and you got to have guys in the lineup that can hit and score runs. I mean, you got to score runs to win the game, obviously. And, I've always believed, the strength of a great baseball team is right up the middle, catcher, pitcher, shortstop, center field. And if you got that, that's where all the scholarship money in college baseball goes anyway. So if you got that, you're good. So that shortstop position at LSU, keep an eye on that. And don't overreact Monday or even next weekend. But that's going to be something that's going to be key, especially when they get to SEC play.
LSU's lineup, for the most part, Tommy, I think is relatively set. Meaning, I think, Milazzo at catcher, he's your best catcher, probably by far. As long as he stays healthy, he'll be in the lineup most of the time, particularly on the weekends. He'll be your guy. Morgan, the freshman, will be over there at first base. Morgan is just steady Eddie, smooth, consistent. They describe him as a shortstop at first base, TK, and I love that. I love a first baseman. You just kind of throw it anywhere over in their direction. They make the play. It makes your offense, your defense a heck of a lot better. Johnny Telechia and Pete Bush, 2 of the better defensive first basemen LSU ever had. That's from the olden days. Pete was in the 80s and Johnny was in the early 90s, the captain of that national championship team in you want. Guys, you could almost close your eyes and throw it over to first base in any direction, and they would pick it. We haven't really seen that type of first baseman much over the last 25 years. It's mostly been about offense. Morgan gives you a little bit of both, but as a freshman, expect the up and downs a little bit with the offense. But they like him. They think he doesn't get fooled, but he's a fantastic first baseman. Dodie at second base, a guy who from Denham Springs High, turned down a lot of money out of high school, would have been drafted high, but they put a high number up there, over $3 million for him to not go to college. They describe him as the funniest guy on the team, from his teammates. He's well liked. When you talk to the coaches, they're saying, Tommy, in year 2, he's finding himself. He's fitting in. He's comfortable. He knows what he's supposed to be. That second year for a player, no matter the sport, is probably the biggest, don't you agree?
Yeah, you see a lot of improvement. The game slows down a little bit. The word you use, comfort, that becomes part of it, and you start having a little more confidence in yourself. And you got to trust yourself. I mean, if you play baseball in college, you're a good baseball player. You have to trust all the work you put in leading up to college. And, Dodie, that second year is usually better than that first. Ronnie, being an old pitching coach, I always used to tell my pitchers, hey, they come off the field in the first inning. Hey, second inning is going to be better than the first, So I think Dodie, and he's got a little more pop in his bat from what I understand. So I think that, that's going to be a key part of LSU. If he goes well, that's going to be really good for LSU.
Make sure you like and share this video every day. Anytime you watch, appreciate us. If you're watching us on YouTube, at Sports Shorts hosted by Ronnie Rantz, or also Sports Shorts, like us on Facebook. If you got an LSU baseball question, go ahead and ask us. We'll do the best we can to get that in. TK and Ronnie Rantz here with you. Sports Shorts presented by LeBears. Tommy's over at Court Street Cafe in Port Allen, right?
Yeah, Court Street Cafe. Hey, they got the Sunday brunch coming up with the Bloody Marys and the mimosas. Crawfish are coming soon. Of course, everybody knows the cold snap weather will affect the crawfish season. But, they got the steak night on Thursday, the daily lunch specials, 805 Court Street. They got a little bar in here in the afternoon. You want to get something on the way home to drink, sit around. Court Street Cafe, easy to find. 2 minutes over the bridge, 805 Court Street. Come over the Mississippi River Bridge, veer to the right to Port Allen. Second red light is Court Street. Take a right, 100 yards on your right. You'll see the patio. You'll see the signs. There'll be plenty of parking available. Court Street Cafe, 7 days a week, breakfast, lunch, dinner. We encourage everybody to check it out. And, again, don't forget the Sunday brunch, where they got the mimosas and the Bloody Marys flowing. So Court Street Cafe, we want you to check them out. I'm going to give a tip. The blackened shrimp remoulade salad. I've had it a couple of times here. I'm going thumbs up on that if you're looking for something a little bit on the healthy side.
Healthy side, or any of you good Catholics out there on a Lenten Friday, make sure you go by there and check it out. So, Tommy, Milazzo at catcher, Morgan at first base, Dodie at second base, that combination is pretty set, and I think it's going to take something extraordinary for that for that to change, right? When you get to the outfield, Giovanni Giacomo in center field. Last year, they gave Hampton a lot of opportunities to play before they knew they were going to lose him to football in the spring, and before they really got going, they wanted to. He got the late, he didn't get the fall, so they wanted to see what they got, what they. He just didn't have the discipline at the plate that LSU would have liked. But he's a guy, Tommy, you look up, he hit basically about 300 both years at LSU, his first 2 years. He hits 300 in the Cape. He just finds a way. It's not always pretty, but he's got the speed to just – if he hits it in the ground and bounces 2 times or 3 times, he's safe. And so because of that, he's always going to find a way to hit for a high average. And I think – and now defensively, they say he might be the best center fielder in the SEC. So Gio's going to be out there in center field, and I expect he's probably going to stay out there 90% of the time. Dylan Cruz is, the next Todd Walker, if you're to listen and believe everything that Paul and them are saying. We'll get back to Dylan Cruz in a minute, but he's going to be in right. Left's going to be interesting. Right now, Dugas swinging the bat very, very well. He's been there 3 or 4. This is like his 3rd year, I believe. Cade Beloso's always an option out there. Right now, Cade's a little banged up. He got a little nagging injury, diving for a ball or something the other day. So he'll probably more likely to just DH right now until he's, back and they have a true option. But that's pretty set. Like, whether it's Dugan left or if Belosso's healthy enough and shows the aptitude, they can put him out there. But that's pretty much your lineup, and I think that's how it's going to be for the rest of the year. The left side of the infield we'll talk about in a minute, but based on that, you're talking about Beloso, Dugan, Gio, and then a little bit of Dodie and a little bit of Milazzo. That's all the experience you have coming back.
Yeah, experience is a key. All coaches like a guy that's been there, done that, and it pays off in the pressure situations. I mean, anybody can hit when you're up 8-0 or down 8-0, and anybody can hit in the second inning when there's nobody on base. But can you do it in the late innings when you're trying to win a game? You have a lead, you're trying to save a game, and can you do it when it matters? And that gets magnified when you get to the SEC because everybody you play is really good.
The left side of the infield, Tommy, as far as baseball is concerned, we hear so much about going up the middle, right? The catcher, the center field, the two middle infield spots. In your opinion, the most important position on the field is what?
Shortstop. I think you got to have a guy.
In your opinion?
Do what?
More so than catcher, in your opinion?
Yeah, because he could save more runs out there at short, do more things with relay throws, turning double plays, the whole bit. I think the shortstop's the key. If you look back at all the great LSU teams, the ones you were on and other teams, there was always a guy at shortstop who could flat out play with the glove, maybe not always the best hitter in the lineup, but the glove. I want a shortstop who's an incredible athlete and can make plays for me, make all the routine plays, then make them one or two plays a game that put them on the highlight reel. To me, that's more, pitching is the most important, but you asked me what position on the field, I'm going to go shortstop.
Well, let's talk about we talked about shortstop with Bianco and Arnold, and that'll be just fun to watch just because, like I said, Arnold's probably the true guy. Bianco's played outfield last year. They didn't play shortstop, even though the year before that they played him some at third. So we'll see what happens with Bianco. That's the kind of the dark horse there. But third base is interesting. Helmers, who's a true freshman out of Jesuit, looks the part. 6'4", 190, 200 pounds. Looks the part. Conor Hale, who was a heck of a player for LSU, for Palmineri, maybe 6 years ago, something like that. Conor Hale, who played third base, super consistent, JUCO transfer, played a couple of years, started at third. One of the best third basemen LSU's had in the last 30 years, to be honest with you. But never looked like he was trying too hard. He did it easy. The ball just kind of stuck in the glove and nice and smooth and tall. And I don't know if Conor is done or if he's still playing minor league baseball, but he played professionally. Helmers reminds Nolan Kane and all the assistant coaches of Conor Hale. Just kind of 6'4", a lot of range. Ball just finds him. Good arm, not a bazooka cannon. But he's hitting the ball. And right now, Paul's kind of going to give him that first crack at third base. So another Jesuit Blue Jay in the mix. Remember, Wally Pontiff Jr. went to Jesuit, played third base. So 20 years later, get another Blue Jay over there. Also a guy who's who can pitch a little bit. They may actually have Helmer's he was a two-way guy in high school. They may actually give him a little two-way action. He's 88, 89, got an Austin Bain kind of comparison. This day and age, Tommy, the two-way player, we just don't see it as much, but we should with the roster limitations.
Yeah, I think you might see it, and that might be a guy you save for down the road, or you wait and see. Knock on wood, you don't want any injuries, but if you would get an injury, okay, now Helmers, we're going to need to get a couple of innings out of you. Maybe throw him out there in the midweek, 1 week, let him throw a pitch count, whatever, see what he can do. But you can't have too many arms. You cannot have too many arms, especially at this kind of level of college baseball in the SEC. You got to be able to get people out, or you're not going to have a season you want to have.
Much like Arnold at shortstop, who's battling Bianco, and we know Helmers is getting the start right now, but the guy who eventually, Sanford, Sanford's a guy that they kind of moved over there to third base. Sanford is a guy. What's the young man's name from U High? I'm gonna look. Okay, got his. Yeah, no, Sanford. Yeah,
Yeah.
He played at U High. Little bitty guy, but a bazooka arm. That's kind of what we're hearing about the description on him, is that he's got a bazooka arm. If he gets a little more consistent, don't be surprised. That kind of Tyler Hanover kind of comp when it comes to Sanford is a guy that could be in the mix over there. Also, Safford is probably, when you talk to, I'm sorry, Safford is the young man from U High. Sanford is a young man I was with them last year that played corner position, a little bit of outfield. So that's why it's a tongue twister. You got Safford and Sanford. Will Safford is the young man that's got that's the Tyler Hanover comp from years ago. A little short guy, super athletic, one of the best base runners on the team. And went to U High, and of course going to be pretty comfortable. Grew up a Tiger fan. He's in the mix right now. A little bit of consistent issues. He'll be probably one of your first base runners, Tommy. A guy who will probably base run late if he's not in the lineup right then and there. Probably one of your first choices off the bench. Talking about Safford. And then when it comes to Sanford, probably the best arm on the team. They said just a bazooka arm. When I talked to one of the coaches on the team, he thinks out of the 3 third basemen right now, Helmers, Safford, and Sanford, he expects that the Sanford kid might pop out of all of them. So we got some interesting battles. You got 5-6 guys battling for 2 spots over the left side of the infield. Everything else on LSU's team looks pretty set.
Well, and when you got that many guys battling for it, you should be able to end up with a guy in a lineup who can be productive, flash the leather, get the hits, and and help you win some games, and not make errors over there at third. So maybe they're pushing each other, and for Coach Maneri, they'll end up with somebody solid that they can count on, and then knowing that you got some good guys as backups as well.
Stephen Miller's got a question for you, TK. Since you're a pitcher, I'll former pitcher, I'll read it to you here. He said, how much does it concern you that we're throwing a game 1 pitcher but limiting him heavily, then go into the bullpen? If we have bullpen issues in game 1, that puts extreme amount of pressure on game 2 and limiting what you can and will do for game 3. Basically talking about thoughts moving forward with Jayden Hill. Right now they're talking about limiting his output. And so Stephen Miller has concerns. I think those concerns are more down the road once you get to SEC play, right?
Yeah, they're more down the road. I would agree with that. I mean, Alan Dunn's got a plan, and Paul Maneri, they have a plan. If the starter can't get out of the first inning, what are we going to do? If he throws 3 innings and he only threw, 37 pitches, they may run him out there for another inning. Now, all of that is part of the big plan. You got to manage the game. You got to manage the weekend, but the most important game is the one you're playing. However, before conference play starts, you got to find out what you got. You don't know what you got with Jayden Hill. That's a huge thing with me. I remember all these guys saying, Coach, I'm a practice player. Coach would say, unless I see you do it at practice, you're not going to do it in the game. Okay, I'm not going to put you in the lineup. So to Stephen's question, I don't think that's a better question 3-4 weeks from now. It's a good question now, but it'll be more pertinent, as they get further down the road and pitch counts go up and they got a little better idea what people can do. Hey, it's one thing throwing in the bullpen. It's one thing throwing the flat ground. It's another thing pitching in a game, trying to get batters out.
I think talking about Stephen Miller's question about the fact that they're going to limit Jayden Hill, I think by the time you get to SEC play, they're not going to limit Jayden Hill that extreme. I mean, like right now, week 1 or 2, they might only pitch him 3 innings or something like that. But I think by the time you get to the SEC play, Jayden Hill's pitch count's probably going to be 100, 110. And, you hope that that's, 6 innings. And so now it'll be interesting if Jayden Hill somehow starts to have, control issues and you put 100 pitch count cap on somebody because he's going to be a superstar top 10, 15 pick in the draft, then all of a sudden he may only give you 4 innings or, that's not what you want on a Friday. So they can cross that bridge when they come to it. But I think by the time you get to start 5, Jayden Hill's going to be up there in that 110 range. And that should be more than enough for 6, 7 innings. Particularly as a guy as dominant as he is. If not, I do believe, Stephen, there's some value in that thunderstick arm and coming out the box, even if he only gives you 5 or 6, Tommy, more than likely Jayden Hill's giving you 5 or 6 with 0 or 1 runs. And so I would take that and go to the bullpen, which has super experience and depth. Remember, roster limitations, you get a couple extra pitchers on the team that you didn't have a year ago. So you have those extra arms this year that you don't have when you have a 35-man roster. You got 2 extra arms with experience. So I think you can survive 4 innings on a Friday night if all of a sudden he becomes just a 5-inning guy. But now you're 4 innings up 1-0 or tied 1-1 or something like that. So I would take that shock and awe of 97 to 100 on Friday night, even if it only gets you 5. But always an idea to move him if need be. Another question here. Let's see. Let me get up here. I know. Let's scroll on up here. Mickey Shermy's got a question here. He says, with 9 teams in the top 25, is this the best year we see in SEC for baseball? How tough will LSU's conference schedule be, and how important will non-conference games be this year? So always that question, Tommy, about non-conference versus conference. What kind of stock do you put in Tuesday, Wednesdays?
Well, I think they're important because you don't know how many games you're going to play. It's a 56-game schedule. I don't know if they're going to play 46 of them. They're going to play 40. They're going to play 50. We don't know because of the pandemic situation, okay, and teams traveling. So I think those games are important. Plus, most of that Tuesday, Wednesday schedule is Louisiana schools, who are all very good, be it Tulane, ULL, McNeese, Nichols, Southeastern. I mean, it's going to be tough competition, and those teams will help you. So I think the Tuesday, Wednesday games are very important. It's not the end of the world if you lose a couple of them, okay, like people used to think years ago, because, the Tuesday, Wednesday teams are really good now. But you got to use that to get better for the conference. The conference is so strong. It's the best conference in America for college baseball, top to bottom. I mean, there's no easy spots. The only good thing about LSU's conference schedule, Florida's not on the regular season schedule because 3 teams from the East always rotate off. Florida, Georgia, Missouri not on there this year. So Florida's number 1 team in the country. So if you don't have to play them, right, that's a good thing. So, but the schedule is what it is. You just got to, it's a marathon. You got to be patient, and you got to try to win a game whenever you can, even if it's a Tuesday night against, Tulane, UNO, whomever.
Yeah, you don't have to play Florida, which, like you mentioned, number 1 team in the East, number 1 team in the SEC, according to the coaches. They received 12 of the 13 votes. But the thing is that, Tommy, you play 2nd, 3rd, 4th. You play all the Tennessees, the Vanderbilts. You play everybody else.
SEC, guess what? You're gonna play every Friday, Saturday, Sunday, starting in mid-March.
The old debate that Mickey Sherman was asking about midweek games, what kind of stock and emphasis you put it in. I'll say this: the SEC is so tough this year. LSU's ranked number 7, as high as number 7 in one of the preseason polls nationally, but yet in the coaches poll, they're picked like 6th, okay, 4th in the West or 3rd in the West or whatever. So the league's super tough. That's why the SEC decided not to play just an SEC baseball schedule. If you go back a month or so ago, there was talk about the SEC playing 4-game series on the weekend, playing everybody in the conference and banging the midweek games and the non-conference games and just focusing on their league. The coaches didn't want any part of that because they realized, you know what, we're going to lose. And we need those non-conference games to bolster our records, to bolster our chances of getting as many teams as possible into the postseason. It's all about getting as many teams into the NCAA as possible. And if you're only beating up on yourselves, those records are going to be so poor. A lot of the good teams are going to have 500 or below records, and they may not get to the NCAA tournament because they might have such a poor SEC record. So they said, no, forget that. We want to keep our 30-game max schedule, which is what they're doing. That's regular. That way they can get 26, hopefully, extra games and win most of those to give themselves the best opportunity to get 10-plus teams in the in the NCAA tournament.
I agree with you. When I saw that thing about they might play, a doubleheader on Saturday, get 4 games in on the SEC weekend, I'm thinking, whoa, that you're really going to find out who's good and who's got the pitching arms in that. So I'm glad that didn't happen. Hey, we live in a world of adjustments now. Just go play the game. Next game on the schedule, go play it. And when you get the conference play, obviously it kicks it up a notch. So, just got to be ready, man. Get ready for it. I'm fired up.
Yeah, Nolan Kane, LSU's longtime player, is a pitcher on the national championship team and now assistant coach. And by the way, Nolan Kane will join me and Charles Hannegriff today at noon on ESPN Radio 104.5 in Baton Rouge. I'll be 12 to 3 with Charlie today and Monday on his show as Jacob Hester moves to the mornings now with T-Bob. So we'll have Nolan Kane on right at 12 today. He said if they played 4 games, this was back when they were thinking about it a couple of months ago. He said if they play 4 game schedules, 4 games on the SEC games on the weekend, he said he might have to start drinking heavily because, joking because,
everybody would.
He's like, we sometimes don't have enough pitching or good quality pitching to get through 3 games on a weekend. Imagine, having to play 4.
And if you look at history, Ronnie, typically that 3rd game, that Sunday game in the SEC, it's the 9-7 game or the 8-6 because you're running out of arms, as opposed to Friday and Saturday. You still got good arms, but they're not Friday and Saturday. There's a reason you throw on Sunday and not Friday, Saturday. So if you went to that 4th game, heck, that 4th game might be, like 12-10 by the time you got through the thing. So, I'm glad they didn't do that. I don't think that would have worked well.
TK, just your takeaway. I know you got the official word on the rotation for the weekend. Just your takeaway, snapshot on each of the top 3 starters this weekend.
Well, Jayden Hill. There's 55 guys on the Golden Spikes Award list, which is the best player in college baseball. It's like the Heisman Trophy in football. It's supposed to go to the best player. I'm surprised Jayden Hill's on that. That tells me the Golden Spikes Committee talks to scouts a lot, and they're hearing the scouts talk about the 97 mile an hour and the upside. Because other than that, but nobody played a lot last year, so that list is different this year. But I got to see Hill do it on the mound consistently, and I'm looking forward to seeing that. Monso's got experience under his belt. You can't trade anything for that. I think he'll be just fine this year. He's a bulldog guy. He wants the baseball, wants to get the batter out. I like his body language and his mindset. AJ Lavis, we haven't seen a lot of him. Again, a little bit of an unknown there. We'll have to see what happens when he throws on Monday. So, that's going to be the 3 guys as we get going. And it'll be interesting to see what happens. I'm just going to tell people again, don't overreact. If Hill gets shelled in the 1st inning tomorrow, don't worry about it. That's part of baseball. Now if he goes 3 up, 3 down for 3 innings, that's good. But don't think that that's going to happen every time out.
I think I have less concern about AJ Lavis than any of the 3 you mentioned because I think in his role as the Sunday guy, he's the perfect Sunday guy. He throws strikes. He can throw strikes at 3 different pitches, and heck, he's a redshirt junior. He had an injury year. He came back last year, made the move. The velocity jumped up to around 90, where he used to be mid-80s. So AJ Lavis, I think, is a perfect Sunday guy. And he's going to be as good or better than most other Sunday guys in the league. Jayden Hill, of course, we got the question mark on what does that look like as a starter, and how can they stretch him out. But regardless of whether they pitch him 3 innings or 5 innings or 6 innings, it's going to be great. Okay, as long as he's out there and healthy, he's been great every time. Marceau is more you had 2 years with him. You had the freshman year, it didn't go so well. You had the 2nd year that went better. Marceau is the guy that coming out of high school, LSU didn't know if they were going to get him. They thought he played on Team USA. They thought he was going to be a high draft pick. They were super happy to get Landon Marceau out of Destrehan. To me, he's the difference maker. Can he be a dominant Saturday guy that can put them over the hump? So I'm curious to see that. If not, you start to look at, okay, who are some guys that could maybe fill in if somebody gets hurt on the weekend, or if somebody just for whatever reason has 3 bad outings in a row on a weekend. You got to make a move. There's a freshman, Ty Floyd, that Nolan Kane really likes. Guy's 6'2", 194-pound freshman out of Georgia. He was a big-time signee, a big-time recruit, a guy that had there not been a pandemic, had there been a normal year, would have probably leaned towards going pro versus coming to college. A guy who throws in the low 90s easy, Ty Floyd. So watch out for him. And another guy that's really made a move that's an interesting guy and reminds me of a young Russ Springer is Garrett Edwards. Garrett Edwards is 6'5", 195-pound, country boy from Pitkin, Louisiana. J.C. Holtz, his head coach over there, was a great player at LSU. But he's a basketball player. Russ Springer was kind of from the country, Central Louisiana, basketball guy, football, baseball player. But he's really made a move. And at 6'5", 200 pounds, Tommy, he probably have a lot more growth for a young man from Pitkin who's kind of been a two-sport guy most of his life.
Well, obviously, he's a good athlete, and you got to be a great athlete to compete at this level. So hopefully the baseball skills can be honed in now and rise to the top. Again, you can't have too many arms. I wish you had some more lefties or a left-handed starter. I think that's more important in baseball than some people think. And not just saying that because you and I are former lefties. I'm just saying for, attacking the opponent and causing them to flip their lineup a little bit, it would be, I think, is a good thing. But, hey, I'm curious to see this pitching staff. We've heard a lot about it. I know Nolan Kane and Alan Dunn and Paul Maneri have all spoke highly about it. But, again, it's going to matter what happens on the field. Ronnie, like I always say, it doesn't matter what park you're in. It don't matter if the sun's out or the lights are on. The guy on the mound is the most important thing in college baseball. He can make the difference.
As far as lefties go, there's one lefty who has made a move the last few weeks and has looked outstanding according to those that have seen him, and that's number 47, Jacob Hasty. Hasty is a 6'2", 220-pound sophomore out of Texas, and the velocity has jumped up. That he's got the run, the cut, the command starting to come around. So of all the couple of lefties they do have on their roster, I look for Jacob Hasty to probably be the one they give the ball to the most, and to be the one that has been more dominant than the others. So that'll be you and I's favorite player this year, number 47. We know about the back end of the bullpen, the Fontenot's, the Beck, the George, the Hilliards, the Vetmeyers. I mean, it's unbelievable, Tommy. These guys are all still there. It feels like a pro team. We've been watching them for years.
Right.
But once they get to that seventh inning, this is about as confident as probably LSU baseball's ever been.
Yeah, well, that's important, especially when you got that lead and a small lead. You got to win that game. When you get to that 7th, 8th inning and you're lead by 1 or 2 or 3, you got to win that one. You can't let it get away. Got to finish the deal there. And that's going to be important for LSU and for Coach Paul Maneri to manage that and get the right guy out there. When it's time to get somebody out, get them out. They're going to have to do that because if they have all the arms they say they have, you can't let games slip away. There's going to be a day when you're going to get beat. You're going to be down 10-1, and it's going to not be your day, and you're going to lose the game. Doesn't mean you're a bad team. It means you had a bad day. So, but those key close games down the stretch, you got to win them. That's what separates championship teams from teams that just do whatever.
This weekend, Tommy, and then we'll close out with a famous Skip story from my freshman year on opening day. But what are you looking forward to watching the most this weekend in LSU's first 3 games?
I just want to see if they can hit the ball. It's going to be cold, and the pitching. I hated pitching in the cold. I'm guessing you did as well. It's tough to stay loose. And then if you bat for a while, you're not loose when you get back out there. So I'm going to be looking for the pitching, obviously, and then, of course, the hitting. And then, base running and defense, that's going to be more important as you go down the stretch. You got to come out the gate, pitching the baseball and hitting the baseball. That's what it takes to win.
2,500 fans is the max that LSU will have, at least for the foreseeable future, unless something changes later in the season. 2,500 fans, though, that's a lot of fans for this time of the year. They don't have more than usually 2,500 on a cold weekend anyway. So it'll be fine. 2,500 is going to seem like a lot after the year we've had. There's going to be a bunch of freshmen, Dylan Cruz and Morgan and others that are making their Helmers at third, that are making their college baseball debut. True freshmen playing in their first game Saturday, 1 o'clock at the box against Air Force. I'll be on the PA. Look for Skip Burtman to make an appearance in the bottom of the 5th to do that inning. But do you remember the first time you played in a game, not the first game you were at as a freshman, but when you finally got in there to pitch at Southeastern?
I absolutely remember it. I got a great story. The first pitch I ever threw in a college baseball game against Mississippi College, we were in Hammond, and Ronnie, I kind of had long hair back then. I threw a pitch to the left-handed leadoff hitter from Mississippi College, and he smoked it back at me, okay? Ronnie, I turned my head. It hit my hair. That's how. If it had hit my face, I'd be even uglier. But it hit my hair on its way into center field. The first pitch I ever threw in a game. It's like welcome to college baseball. Chris Belmont was my catcher. He came to the mound because I'm telling you, it hit my hair. People didn't know if I was okay or not. He said, "Welcome to college baseball, TK." I said, "Okay, good. This stuff might be tougher than I thought." All right. Footnote, I left after 5 innings, not giving up a run. So
nice.
I did okay that day. But that first pitch I threw hit my hair on its way into center field.
Yeah, that'll give you
nervous. I probably threw the old BP fastball, which most hitters would say my fastball was always a BP fastball. But I just probably groove one in there, trying to get the most important pitch in baseball, which is strike one. And I almost got my face mangled by it.
That's pretty good that you don't have PTSD from that first pitch. My first experience came against Stephen F. Austin. It was we were playing him in a doubleheader, like on a Saturday or something. It was first weekend of the year, something like that. Second weekend of the year, and they put me in to throw the ninth, and it was cold, and there wasn't a lot of fans left. I think it was the ninth inning of the first game of the doubleheader, or the seventh. I don't remember how. I think we played a 9 and a 7 or something. But and there was probably less than 2,500 fans at the old box. I mean, it was, like I said, it was cold. Second week of the year, ninth inning, we were up a few runs, so probably 1,500 people or something like that. It seemed like 5,000. You know what I mean? Like, because they were all on their feet and cheering. The old box did project more. Like the old box, because it was on top of you and steep. It seemed louder at the old box.
Who was catching you? Anthony? Was Antonini out there?
I'm not 100% sure if they had pulled Gary Email and they put Adrian Antonini in there with me. Chances are probably they had Antonini in there with me, something like that. But I'm not 100% sure. I was so out of my mind, I don't necessarily remember. But I did strike out 2 out of 3 in that inning, and I did strike out the last guy. On a breaking ball. I think it was a swing and miss lefty. And when like when the home crowd knows it's 2 outs and 2 strikes in the bottom of the ninth, they're looking for the strikeouts. Everybody's on their feet.
Want the punch out. Boom.
Everybody's on their feet cheering. And when I finally struck him out, I mean, there was a rush of energy that came through my body, and that 1,500 people seemed like 15,000. And it was an awesome experience. And so that was my first experience. But I'm going to give you a skipper. Kim Abear requesting online there. Once I close out with a classic skip impersonation. I got
to do an interview at 11. We're getting long-winded here today.
Yeah, I'll give you one real quick here at the end. So Coach Bertman, 1991, we're playing on ESPN at Alex Fox Stadium. I believe it was Oklahoma State. That's who we opened up with that day. And I'm gonna mute you because all the noise in the back. So anyway, we're playing Oklahoma State on ESPN, Tommy, and we beat them. We rush out to the field, and Armando Rios was a sophomore transfer outfielder who had just joined us at mid-break. You could do that back then. And he hardly spoke much English. And he comes running in from center field, and he does like a round-off backflip somersault thing over the mound. And I mean, like literally like jumps over me. And the picture in the Advocate is me looking up and him like with a backflip going over me. So the next day, Coach Bertman addresses the team in the locker room and says, "Hey, guys, listen," he holds up the paper. "We got this guy, Armando Rios, new guy, doesn't speak much English, doing a backflip over the mound here at the box. Hey, Armando, we don't do backflips for opening games of the season. We do backflips when we win championships. I never want to see that again." And so Armando went, "Okay, coach," and then like 6 months later or whatever, we win the national championship in Omaha, and it first one in program history. And sure enough, came running in from center field, did the backflip, over the pile or whatever. And but I just remember that moment, my freshman year, and Coach Bertman getting on Armando. Pretty awesome moment. TK, one last thing before I let you go. Tell us about Court Street Cafe.
Well, Court Street Cafe, the lunch crowd's rolling in here 7 days a week, breakfast, lunch, dinner, the Sunday brunch, steak night on Thursdays, crawfish coming soon. Court Street Cafe. Check them out on Facebook or Instagram. Thank you, Ronnie.
All right, Tommy will be back with us on Monday at 10 o'clock. Sports Shorts Daily presented by the Bears.